What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today it is going to be mock draft 3.1 with trades. If you guys want to see the mock draft 3.0 that did not have trades, feel free to check that out yesterday. Always like to drop one of those a week so we can test out some cool scenarios and then get to have a lot more fun with these because this is going to be 2 rounds over 2 days. So stay tuned. We are on the road to 10K, so feel free to come join the community. We're growing at actually a really good rate right now, which is awesome. So I have you guys to thank for that. If you like draft content, I post 2 mock drafts every single week. Why, you might ask? 1, new draft order, always changes it up. But 2, more players start popping off. It's more opportunities to have fun and be able to really engage with these players and give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek into all the stuff that we do in the off season. So it's very fun to be able to finally see the guys that you get all hyped up about watching last year's tape start producing this year. Sure, there's a couple guys who don't perform as well as you think, but that's just all in the name of the game. If you guys do not know, I have a Micah Parsons Penn State jersey. Thought it'd be kind of cool to feature in this. I am a huge Penn State fan. Why? I have no idea, but I tend to love all their players, and we're gonna leave it at that. So at pick number 1, Chicago. This is trades, so keep that in mind. Finally, I get to trade out of these picks. This is not one of them. This is going to be Caleb Williams. Now, I know that there is a lot of stipulation around the idea that Caleb will go back to school if the Bears or the Cardinals have this pick. Now, I think that is something he could consider, but Caleb might put an ultimatum on the Bears. Let's just say they have the number 1 pick and say, hey, I need to approve of your head coach, GM, OC, etc. And there could be enough momentum with that type of ultimatum to get that change done. Now, if Ben Johnson's the offensive coordinator / head coach, because I think he could be that Andy Reid style type of guy, I think that you're going to be golden. But you really have to focus on making sure you make the right moves, because if you panic and then end up taking another Eberflus, who is defensive minded, then you're not necessarily going to be putting your quarterback in the best situation. Now, Caleb Williams is a little bit more special than most quarterbacks because of the fact that, he can make plays on his own, but he's still operating in a I always say Cliff Kingsbury every time. It's not Cliff Kingsbury. Yes, Lincoln Riley. There we go. I said that every single time I talked about Caleb Williams because I keep getting the mindset of Kyler Murray. But regardless, yes, I finally said it correct this time. Lincoln Riley offense. He is spectacular. He still is in a really easy to operate offense that can work with his special abilities. You still need to do it at the next level. Just because you have a great quarterback does not mean you get to take your foot off the gas pedal on making a really good offensive play scheme. So I hope that they get that right. I'm going to project that they do in this situation. At number 2, the Broncos are here, and I don't know if they would be a good spot for Drake May. Now, part of me is going to do this because I want the best for Drake May. Those of y'all who have been watching the show know I'm not necessarily the highest guy on Drake May, but there's a key to scouting that I think a lot of people don't fully understand, and it's okay because when you scout a player, I don't scout them to say, how are they going to do in their best situation? I'm scouting them to see holistically who they are right now. Now, with guys like Christian Gonzalez, there's certain systems he would not have worked in, i.e. the Steelers. I did not like that fit. So I was praying he wouldn't go there. But I said if he went to the Patriots, there are some dream fits that are absolutely perfect for their success. Lo and behold, Christian Gonzalez goes to the Patriots. He's been balling out. Now, Drake May has a lot of really amazing traits. He has god-tier throws, throwing into a 1-by-1 window. He also has some playmaking issues when it comes to decision making. Sometimes, he lowers his shoulder way too much. Let's throw that out the window, because just talking about that alone, I'm a little bit worried about his durability in the long run. But that could be easily coached out. When it comes to the decision making, when it comes to the inconsistencies, I haven't seen him improve enough to make me comfortable in a situation where I don't trust the development of the quarterback or the system that they'd be in. Minnesota is the team that I'm going to be moving up with here. Just one spot. I'm going to have them flip, so it's going to be the exact same draft order as yesterday. I think Minnesota is just the perfect spot to go for Drake May. I don't think this would cost very much at all. I know that, the Broncos could be getting some bids, like the Raiders could be. I think the Raiders have way too many issues. Not many teams within striking range, so I don't think, again, to trade up, you have to have some, or to trade back, you have to have someone willing to pay the price to trade up. Uh, you can negotiate however much you like to be able to move up from 2 to 3. Like, let's just assume that we do the triangle trade here. It's not going to affect this mock draft regardless, so feel free to do your own scoregami type shit. So there we go. We do that trade right there, and take Drake May. This situation is just perfect for him. So just like the Christian Gonzalez to New England situation where I said instantly, I think this guy's going to be an all-pro, even though holistically as a corner, I don't fully believe in him if he's not in that situation. Drake May is very similar to that. I think this is a spot that can emphasize his playmaking ability. You have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and KJ Osborne too, not to mention him, to be able to bail him out in terms of those situations where he just says, YOLO, fuck it, I'm going to throw it up. But also in those situations where maybe the pass is off 2 yards and they have to adjust. Those are really good pieces to get enough separation to allow for that to happen. So this is a great spot for him to really thrive as a passer. And I hope to God, honestly, that they are in this situation. I'd love to see Caleb Williams versus Drake May. And I would not be too surprised in this situation if Minnesota ends up looking better than Chicago year one, because I think they need operational success more than the Vikings do. They have arguably one of the best DCs in the NFL, and they're, to be fair, their defense is crap, but I feel like their offense is a little bit more ready to hit the ground running than Chicago's is. But at pick number 3, I could honestly trade out of this spot as well. But with Garrett Bowles, I talked about this yesterday. Garrett Bowles was, interviewed after the game, and obviously it's a pretty humbling experience to get absolutely shellacked like that. But he ended up saying, dude, I'm tired of losing. I've been here and done nothing but losing. So I would not be too surprised if, one, he requests a trade, because he was actually on the trade market earlier in the offseason. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's shipped out. I think this team could be in the mood to, move on. And I think that when you see, one, your left tackles like confidence completely diminish, you need to be able to replace that with somebody with a little bit more juice, a little bit more excitement. So I have been notoriously not negative on Olu Fashanu, but notoriously patient. And I wanted to see how he performs and how he progresses. To me, when I see a raw player with unbelievable potential, I care a little bit less about the actual product rather than the progression. Because when players similar to Anthony Richardson, it's why I fell in love with Anthony, you see that progression and that work ethic. You see them improve their game, continue to improve their weaknesses. That to me is everything. Another reason why maybe I'm not as high on Drake May is because I see all that playmaking. He's doing a great job, but he's not improving the areas that I want him to improve in. Olu Fashanu is improving, and he might be one of the best tackles that I've studied. He was reminiscent of Evan Neal to me at left tackle with better mirroring ability. Just ridiculous athlete, probably the best that I've seen at that position. Evan Neal, I think he's actually going to be a super successful left tackle in the NFL. I just don't think he works at right. Some players just can't do that flip-flop, and, that's that. Olu Fashanu, I'm praying to God, stays at left tackle. And in this situation, I'm going to project it. There's not many tackles that have the athletic ability of Olu Fashanu, and there is a very, very good chance that he ends up being on that Trent Williams level if he continues to develop properly. I'm praying that's the situation here, but I've also seen it at Penn State where I necessarily don't fully believe in how their offensive line is coached. So I'm seeing him develop in a situation that's not conducive for development. So I'm going to be someone who's very, very high on Olu Fashanu. He's going to continue rising up my board the more I see him progress. I'm very excited for him to end up possibly even being my number 3 player in the draft. For those of y'all who don't know, this is a live mock draft, but also I blend my board with realism. Like the consensus board and my board, like if I just did what I would do, you just see what's on my board right below my face. I guess I should point there. And you'd end up being like, okay, that's the mock draft. There you go. That's not fun. That's not entertaining. And it's a good way to show my little twist on what people understand right now as the draft itself. So it's just a cool way to do it. Obviously, I could do a complete fantasy mock draft and take my guys, and I do put my spin on this, but At the same time, you got to understand that, I'm not 100% correct, and I try to be. But at the same time, there's guys who have PFF Ultimate, get to watch every single rep. So it is also quite cool to be able to implement everybody's takes into one mock draft. But the Bears, I don't think I need to explain this too much. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best wide receiver that I have studied. He and Jamar Chase are very similar in style, in my opinion. I think Jamar's better after the catch. Maybe Marvin's a little bit more consistent as a route runner, but both of them are spectacular. Marvin, to be fair, Jamar Chase was graded before I had a quantitative grading scale. It's more qualitative than anything. So Marvin is the highest graded player I have ever had. Pick number 5. So this is not my draft order. I just got to put this out here because Chargers fans are going to be livid. This is, I believe, based on the records at the moment. And that's because the Bengals ended up winning their game. And I assume that's just why that the Chargers are here. I'm taking this directly from PFF. And if the season continues to go this way, this is where they're going to be. So it's just a fun way to put a little twist on it. Because, again, you have the Chargers here, the Bengals here. It's just cool. So, you know what, Chargers fans, I know it hurts, but you might as well rejoice in getting Brock Bowers. There you go. Just enjoy it for the time being. It's just like the Eagles when they had like 3 top 10 picks, and you get Kyle Hamilton, Derek Stingley, and I think Jordan Davis might have been the other selection at the time. Doesn't matter. But, even, DeMarvin Leal back in the day when he was a monster edge rusher. But number 6, regardless, we got the Raiders here, which, again, I think that the Chargers are significantly better than the Raiders. But either way, you know what? We ball. And let's just have a little bit of fun here. At number 6, the Raiders. I think this is a good spot to trade out. Joe Alt, I did see that Colton Miller has been kind of shellacked a little bit here and there. I think he's still a quality left tackle. I'm not going to replace him just yet. Illuminor, the Steelers defense is absolutely baller. So, there is a reason why, the Steelers end up having a lot of success is because of the fact that the defense is absolutely monstrous. And, I can't really put that on the tackles for facing arguably the best player in the NFL. So I'm not going to go the offensive line route for this team. A lot of people want to go quarterback, and I understand that. I'm going to say until Aiden O'Connell proves me wrong, I believe that he could end up starting for this team, and I'm going to continue hoping for that. I do believe that he will. He was a top 100 player for me as well. So, yeah, I do believe that he could end up taking the reins on this team, and I want to see what happens before I start spending a top 10 pick on another quarterback. For those of y'all who see Joe Milton right here at 14, he is still graded out as my number 2 quarterback because of the fact that I'm still waiting on all 22. I don't adjust my grades on quarterbacks, receivers, or defensive backs until I get all 22 tape, which should be within the next week. So fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. But the tape I've seen, I haven't really necessarily thought Joe Milton has been ass. Like, there are a lot of redeeming traits within the games that he's played, but that's a topic for another pick. But at this spot, I think this is a good trade out spot. You got Jared Verse on the board. I'm going to go looking for defensive interior primarily for this team. Defensive interior, linebacker, corner. Those are going to be my primary positions. Now, to be fair, Kool-Aid McKinstry is here, and this is a deep defensive interior class. So I'm going to eat my words, and I'm going to go Kool-Aid McKinstry here. Usually I actually have him gone within the top couple picks, but Kool-Aid McKinstry is exactly what you're needing. You want a younger Marcus Peters. This is probably going to be just that. Pick number 7. So now we have our first Arizona Cardinals selection. I do think defensive interior is ass on your team. Now, I wouldn't be against going Joe Alt and just continue to boost the offensive line, but you kind of did that with Paris Johnson this past year. Kalen King is going to be a good addition. This defense is playing extremely well for, being this defense. And I'm actually looking at Johnny Newton here, but I got to remind y'all, we have pick number 45 as well. And I want to highlight the defensive interior class. We have 3 creme de la creme guys, Jenkins, Taylor, Newton. But behind that, we have some really good pieces. You got Tavondre Sweat, who's 355 and a monster nose tackle. You want to run stuffer in the 3rd round, this guy's going to be an absolute eating machine, both literally and metaphorically. Now we have Tyleik Williams, who I think is spectacular. He's going to be one of my big risers of the week. He ended up being the number 1 defensive graded player on Ohio State in the past week versus Notre Dame. So you have really good options there at 45. I can guarantee you. I can't guarantee you the same on a cornerback. I can't really even guarantee the same on an edge rusher, but you guys have 3 of my guys at edge rusher. So I'm going to give y'all a little bit of pause right there. So I'm going to be going Kalen King here. I know a lot of people like to go after the defensive interior spot, and I think it's an amazing need. But just wait till tomorrow. We'll be able to get there. Or we might even get it at 13. Who knows? Pick number 8. So Tennessee, I mean, again, this is the number 1 team I hate drafting for the most, but I think Joe Alt's the right move. I really do. I kind of want to have Andre Dillard be a swing tackle and, fill in where need be, and have Joe Alt right next to Peter Skoronski. The left tackle position is one of the few that you desperately need to get right in the NFL. And Joe Alt, to me, he slid down my board quite a bit based on his play versus JT Tuimoloau. But JT honestly rose up my board significantly more than Joe Alt slipped. So yes, for those of y'all who know that I wasn't fully sold on JT, I just said, let's wait until he plays Joe Alt. And he did a phenomenal job. Still some major areas of improvement needed, but definitely, again, talking about that progression, saw some progression for sure. I'm going to go Joe Alt here because, again, I think the Titans, especially being so run heavy, really focus on that offensive line, and they really need to because, again, that's the lifeblood of their team. Having a consistent run game and having good pass protection for the quarterback position that is not necessarily fully set, but there's no quarterback at 8 that I feel would offer the value difference between trying out Will Levis the next year compared to Joe Alt. Pick number 9. This would have been very fun to be able to draft Brock Bowers here. We have not had a trade apart from at number 2. This might be the next trade because I don't think they need Jared Verse, and I think there are a couple of teams that might be extremely excited for a player like that. I'm seeing a team that offered 2 first-round picks and I believe a second-round pick for a Florida State edge rusher from Carolina. And the Rams desperately could use even more excitement on that defense. They're performing way better than they should, which is mind-boggling. But that's just because Stafford has proven to be able to come back from that elbow surgery and be really damn good. Other teams that could be looking at the edge rushing position, I mean, I'm not going to have the Texans go ballsy and trade back up again because that just doesn't make sense. So I'm going to go with the Rams here, who actually just lost to the Bengals. So we're actually going to have them switch positions. Hallelujah. There you go. So we could just do a basic trade calculation based on this. I don't think the Bengals would be able to secure the Rams second, but we could, of course, do the good old triangle situation. Y'all know how much I have a fetish for some reason for going at first, a third, and then a future second. I think this is adequate value as well. It is pretty damn adequate. That's why I said 60% chance of being accepted. We're not going to roll the dice on this one. We're going to have the Rams move up. They've proven to be a lot more ballsy with the draft capital they pay for someone very similar to Jared Verse, who'd be a lot more expensive. So we're going to be going Jared Verse here to the Los Angeles Rams. I think offensive line would be a good move for the Rams as well. But when you can get somebody who could definitely be the cornerstone of your defense after Aaron Donald leaves, it's okay. It's okay to be able to say, hey, we're going to leverage a little bit of our draft capital and still get a superstar. Pick number 10 for the Jaguars. So this is where I ended up going after my favorite guard in the class that y'all see right here in Christian Haynes. I'm a big fan of him, but this is a perfect spot to trade back, right? This is not the spot where I would necessarily take him. And you got really good receivers. Now, we could get Keon Coleman. There's been a lot of drops. Trevor Lawrence puts in the right spot and you throw it up to Keon Coleman, he's going to catch it. That honestly, I really fucking love that move. Now, a lot of y'all will be considering saying, hey, why is Johnny Wilson at 3 above Keon Coleman? And why am I taking Keon Coleman before my number 3 receiver then? Again, one, I blend my board with realism. I know Johnny Wilson's been dealing with some drops. Probably a little PTSD for Trevor Lawrence here, right? But Keon Coleman, so he was my number 6 receiver coming into the year before he even was at Florida State, right? He never took a snap at Florida State. I've been a big fan of him since Michigan State. So I knew he had that X build. Very unique. Not only 2 guys, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Keon Coleman, I believe have a true boundary X number 1 receiver build. I think Johnny Wilson could be more of a slot operator or a really good number 2 who is going to end up being the number 1 on a team. But Keon Coleman is built as that stereotypical X receiver. Keon still is working on his polish as a route runner after the catch. He's done a phenomenal job, but he's still working on the nuances there. And his release package is honestly the primary reason. He's still working on that. So there's the finer things in the game that he's improving on. But my God, does he continue to prove that my 5 out of 5 on contested catch grade to him is worth giving. So very excited for that. He's been phenomenal. He's just proving me right in the areas I believed in, and he's still working on the others. So again, I want to see a little bit more progression in that regard, but I don't think he needs to fit the role that he needs to for the Jaguars. Pick number 11, the New York Jets. A lot of people are saying, let's grab a quarterback here. And I'm actually quite intrigued with the idea of moving back significantly, grabbing a tackle, and then also picking up a quarterback. I think that's a very smart thing. Again, they only have pick number 11 here, and you could end up getting the top tier tackle like Amarius Mims and saying, hey, we're good. We're done. Like we now are going to take one more year with Aaron Rodgers, and then we're going to be good. And I think that wouldn't be a bad idea at all. But at the same time, to be fair, the New England Patriots made y'all lose out on Broderick Jones. Could we get the revenge tour and say, Patriots, y'all ain't getting Amarius Mims? We could do a trade back to secure that. So looking at a team like the Bengals could try to move back up. You know, they acquired some extra future draft capital. They could try to move back up here. But I think that it's almost more sweet to just stare Bill Belichick right in the eye and just be like this. You really wanted Amarius? A really athletic 6'7", 320, 330 pound monstrosity that is full of raw talent. Oops. And Amarius Mims goes to the Jets. Now, I think people are acting like Aaron Rodgers is dead or something. He tore his Achilles. He's going to have a full year to recover it. It was his first drive or something. And he tore his ACL, or he tore his Achilles, excuse me. And having that full year, I think he'll come back perfectly fine. Now, it's very tough for an athlete to do that. But at the same time, that's a full year of recovery. It's not like he's tearing his Achilles at the end of the season. And I think he went to Dr. Neil Elatrosh, who ended up doing Cam Akers. He ended up actually doing my mom's knee too, as well as Tom Brady, I think RG3. So, you know, this guy knows what the fuck he's doing, right? And he's going to be potentially able to even throw a ball by the time of mid to late season. Now, I don't think he should ever play until next. I think it's okay to say, hey, we're going to have a number 11 pick and end up getting a really good tackle for you because, you know, I like Mekhi Becton. I like that Elijah Vera Tucker can play tackle, but I really don't trust Mekhi's overall health. But more importantly, I want Elijah to be a guard. Like, that's where he belongs. He belongs as a guard. So this is a great way to protect Aaron Rodgers when he comes back 100%. Pick number 12. So here's the Patriots. And you know what? They're still smiling. They're like, you know, we really would have loved to have gotten a star offensive tackle for our offense. But Emeka Egbuka will do. He fits the system a lot better anyways, in my opinion. You know, he's going to be Juju Smith-Schuster times Jacoby Myers. Like, the niftiness, the fluidity of Jacoby, but the physical profile and just the physicality of Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, Emeka Egbuka is a perfect receiver for the Patriots. I don't know what it is with me and Ohio State receivers in New England. I just have a huge affinity for it. It was the same thing with Olave and Garrett Wilson. You know, they were both guys who I were dying to be on the New England Patriots. They both would have been really nice additions, obviously, but Emeka Egbuka is the next in line in that group. Pick number 13. So this is a great spot where we can end up getting Johnny Newton. I mean, it's a good idea. At this point, you might as well. Now, we could upgrade the interior of the offensive line here with guys like Graham Barton, but we can do that in round 2 as well. I think that the top-end talent of guys like Jerzon Newton and Leonard Taylor is worth it. And I think Jerzon Newton is more of an asset in the run game consistently than Leonard Taylor is. Chris Jenkins, still waiting for him to go up against a top tier offensive line. So, if he ends up going against an Ohio State front, or because he's ended up gaining about 20 pounds in the offseason, Ohio State front, Notre Dame, for example, like I don't believe they're playing Notre Dame this year, but even Penn State, they're not great either, but especially Ohio State. I am going to definitely, like, if he ends up balling out, he'll accelerate to be my number one interior defensive lineman. But until then, I'm going to be going Jerzon Johnny Newton, who has proven week after week to be an absolute beast. Pick number 14 for New York. So we took most of the receivers that I absolutely adore. I do think Malik Neighbors would not be a bad addition. I think Johnny Wilson's a better addition. You're looking for an X-build receiver to be the YOLO type of target. But looking at the guys who are available, I am still seeing a guy like, Malik Neighbors is here, but I am still seeing Dallas Turner, Chris Jenkins on the board, top-tier quarterbacks on the board. Like, there are some legitimate stars that are still here that I feel like I could trade back and feel very comfortable. Now, I'm looking at a team like the Buccaneers. There are teams, for example, we don't know what the situation is with the QB in the long run of the Saints. They could be in the mood to go after a QB here. There are also teams that are kind of lurking. The Commanders could be trying to poach. You could even see, God forbid, why the fuck are the Falcons down there? The Falcons, you gotta be kidding me. This is why draft orders are so stupid, but that's okay. But I'm looking at the Buccaneers right here. They don't need to make a move up at this point, but let's just say there are some competing bids for this pick. And I know this goes against my logic here. What's up with the Panthers? Like, why would that be one of the teams that wants to move up to the spot? We're going to move up with the Bucs. They've proven with Baker, and I love Baker. I'm not trying to shit on Baker by any stretch of the imagination, that they are a formidable threat with a game-managing quarterback. Now, maybe it could have been a fourth-round pick. Again, not going to affect this mock draft. Feel free to calculate that in your own minds. But when it comes to a game manager, this system has enough weapons. They have an okay running game. I think that it's going to continue developing into a really good running game and a very solid O-line. The defense is studded out. Now, that's exactly what Michael Penix kind of has, and is what he's thriving in Washington. So they could have stayed put and ended up getting him, but let's just assume that there will definitely be some teams, especially probably closer to this range, that are going to be trying to hop into this range to snag one of the two. And sometimes you just don't want to roll the dice. And for a third, maybe even a fourth round pick, which I think, honestly, if we're going to be completely blunt, that probably should have been a fourth round pick, is going to be excellent value. So good for Michael Penix, good for the Buccaneers. Pick number 15 for the Bengals, who decided to move back, and smartly so. You're looking at the targets that are still available. Personally, I would love Cooper DeJean on this team. That's just something that I would love because he's going to be a monster at safety. But when you look at the offensive line, you got Graham Barton here, Tyler Guyton, Kingsley Suamataia, Javon Foster's been doing well as well this year. Taliese Fuaga right here at my number 12 spot. And that right tackle spot's primarily what I'm going to be focusing on. Graham Barton might be drafted before him, and I think that's might be why I'm leaning maybe towards a guy even like J.C. Latham. And I'll give my little pedestal here. We'll draft J.C. because I think his talent is incredible, and he's a right tackle spot, so both position and value that they are looking for. So you trade back, you end up getting a third and a future too. And J.C. Latham. It's a good value. But when analyzing this pick, J.C. Latham, I have one primary issue. I talked about it on my Twitter page. Feel free to go check me out there. He is someone who will give up 70% through the play. He'll do a phenomenal job for the first 70%. And he's been doing a better job at using more power and, just being a little bit more polished. But when it comes to the finish of the play, I see him standing still way too often. Now, that could be scary as shit for Bengals fans. They're like, dude, you're going to get Joe killed because you just drafted us a guy who will play only 70% of the snap. Maybe. And that's the caveat. At 15, if he ends up playing 100% of the rep, he's worth the top 10 pick. Like, you guys would have to have stayed at that spot to draft him. But maybe if you can get them to work and work their ass off, they'll be fine. And I think this team, especially with Joe as the leader, I think that there will be enough motivation to be like, dude, get your head and ass wired together. So I think there's enough accountability on the squad to make JC as good as possible. Might be one of my dream fits for him down the line. Pick number 16 to the Saints. Now, I do think that wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, I took him yesterday. Still in love with that idea. Really good deep threat who also is good after the catch. Just another weapon for Derek Carr to have. You have Chris Olave there, Rashid Shaheed. Kind of takes away the need, to be honest, for Malik Neighbors the more I think about it. Leonard Taylor, you could pair him up there with Brian Breezy. That would be kind of nasty. That'd be a really fun addition. I'm intrigued what y'all think about that. Cooper DeJean could be a corner / safety hybrid because I do know the safety core is getting a little bit older, and this guy is going to be an absolute beast. I think I'm going to go that route. The value is too good for the potential of Cooper DeJean. He'd be a top 32 player on my board easily as a safety, maybe even a top 15. The dude has crazy special teams abilities as well, but he's extremely fast in a straight line, and he also hits like a truck. So this guy could be an absolute enforcer there in the secondary and continue the domination that the Saints secondary usually tends to have. Pick number 17, this is going to be Johnny Wilson. Talked about it earlier. You need someone who can be an X, even though I do think he might not be a pure X at his size at 6'7", 240. This guy is probably going to be running a lower 4.5, and he has the best contested catch ability besides Keon Coleman in the class. Arguably, he's there with Michael Pittman. Like, those two with Michael Pittman is incredible. And to be 100% fair, I actually went to high school with Michael Pittman and got to see him in person quite a bit. Johnny Wilson actually played for our rival too, there at Calabasas. So it's actually quite intriguing having that Oaks and Calabasas connection right there. But Johnny Wilson, just that contested catch ability is off the charts. It's the remedial drops. Like when you're just having an easy slant, he just drops the ball. It does not make sense, but I think that's something you could easily work out. Praying it does, but you want a YOLO guy, Johnny Wilson's going to be your best, if not second best option in the class. Pick number 18, the Cowboys. We still have some of my top 10 guys on the board. This might be one of the spots where I end up taking one. And I'm looking at Graham Barton here. I think that's a phenomenal option for the team. I don't know why running back would be the primary option at this point. And I really like the running backs in the class. That's the thing. It's a good running back room. So I think you could wait. Marshawn Lloyd, for example, he's like my favorite sleeper in the class. He's probably, if he ended up not having fumble issues and learns how to break tackles a little bit better, he'd probably be my RB1. But because of that, he's a little bit down the board. And at least they have him here at 120, but I think I'll be probably putting him in my 40s or 50s. Regardless, I'm looking at linebacker here because y'all do need it. You do. I've been neglecting linebacker quite a bit, but we have seen the first round linebacker himself in, Jack Campbell. He's been performing very, very well. I had Tommy Eichenberg and Jack Campbell neck and neck on my board before Tommy decided to return. I do think this would be a very smart option, but I am also seeing a lot of teams that might not necessarily be in the mood to go after linebacker, and there are some very good players that are still on the board. So I'm in the mood to trade it down here. I don't think Jerry needs to stay put and, be Jerry. So you got Malik Neighbors here. That's going to be a very good complementary piece in an offensive system. But more importantly, we have two defensive interiors before we do see a legitimate drop-off. I am talking about the Seahawks being a potential team to come up here, but they also need linebacker. I don't think I would trade with them. But looking at teams that could use defensive interior help, you could also look here. But, man, just the way this board ended up going, why are the Steelers at 29? What are you doing, PFF? One could dream, right? But regardless, you got Leonard Taylor here and Chris Jenkins. You also have the quarterbacks, too. It's just such a weird class. There's not that many teams that would be really gunning for a QB at this point. Now, you could trade back, actually, with the Seahawks to go after a QB, but I don't think they're going to be in the mood to do that. I have a weird feeling y'all are stuck. So we could go after Graham Barton here, get a really good offensive lineman. But at the same time, I've also talked about the value of a linebacker. Man, that is tough. I'm going to go offensive line because I do feel like the Dallas Cowboys thing to go. a white offensive lineman this early. And, Graham Barton, he plays left tackle, but he also went to Duke as a center. So center, and I think he's played every single position except right tackle on the line of scrimmage. So, you guys have done a pretty good job by getting Graham Barton, who's a monster Swiss Army knife. So good for y'all. Graham Barton is the selection. Green Bay, I would be in the mood to look at tackle. I know that y'all don't like that idea, but again, Bakhtiari might just say, screw it, I'm going to go to New York if they end up not drafting Amarius Mims. That's a legitimate option. Even though Amarius Mims is a right tackle, so they still could go after Bakhtiari. But this team, primarily your main need is a running back. And I think y'all understand that, but I'm not going to take one this early. Jaden Hicks is a sneaky name I could see being taken this high because this team does like to reach a little bit. But Nubin's awesome. I'm going to go Cameron Kitchens here just because. Y'all know what's up. Pick number 20. This team needs defensive help. That's a shitty explanation. And the safety core definitely could use an infusion of youth. Cameron Kitchens is a ball hawk. I'm praying to God to see more all 22 of him because there is none. Makes no freaking sense. And you pay money for somebody to get you all 22 and then they backstab you like that. But it's okay. We're going to get some soon. We're going to actually be paying a different provider significantly more higher monthly amount, but that is okay because I love y'all. We're going to get some Cameron Kitchens tape sooner than later. Pick number 20. I've done this consistently. Dallas Turner, and I do think it's a smart move because he also plays coverage so well. Recently this past week versus Ole Miss, he actually covered Ulysses Bentley, who, former SMU, pony up. He is lightning fast, and he covered him on a freaking wheel route. Did a phenomenal job to the point where Dart just pretty much had to gun it away. So I do think that there's certainly a focus on the edge rushing position. People are going to bring up offensive line. They're all hurt. That's why they suck. And the receiving room, I personally think Malik Neighbors could be a cool option. That does seem like a pretty good choice. The more I think about it, it's a good way to change things up too. So we'll go Malik Neighbors. Now, y'all know, I've been saying this repetitively, but y'all know I'm a little bit lower on Malik Neighbors, but similar to what I believe with Drake May, there are certain role fits that they have that they'll be extremely successful in. This will be one of them. He doesn't need to be a true number one. He doesn't need to be the route running savvy type of guy. He just needs to be the guy you get the ball in his hands, he shakes some dudes and takes it to the house, or he gets open deep. And you have your route runner primarily already with Tank Dell. You have your big contested catch guy in Nico Collins. This is a really good complement to that. So again, when you scout a player holistically, he does not have the route running nuances that you need. He rounds his out routes pretty poorly. He doesn't turn around very well unless he's using physicality, but that's okay because that's not the role he will fit in this offense. And that's why he'll be successful. I'm praying to God. So he's going to be definitely a post-draft eval on how well he's going to perform, but I do think that certainly is a good position to go. The Buffalo Bills, I do think you might as well just continue bolstering the D line here. I mean, Leonard Taylor paired up with, what's his name? I'm tripping. Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver actually was the second game I ever saw of college football, which was on the same day that I saw TCU play Kansas State, was I actually saw Ed Oliver. Well, that was the game he sat out versus SMU, but regardless, got to see Houston versus SMU. And that's actually what got me into college football. And that's what actually got me to go to SMU. So cheers to Ed Oliver for that. I think offensive line's been the primary issue for this team. Defensive back as well with that safety core. You could try to transition a guy. You could train up Kamari Lassiter to be a boundary DB, but this is a good safety class. Tyler Nubin, Kalen Bullock, both those guys would be phenomenal additions for the squad. But of course, down the line, you can get guys like Cole Bishop that are a little bit more athletically limited. I am debating going after a safety here, but we do have still some good tackles on the board. And I'm debating going Taliese Fuaga because he is just such a monster. And I feel like he has the ferocity that you're looking for in a right tackle. Later this week, we will be actually talking to Brendan Jackson. We were supposed to talk to him today, but we're going to talk to him on Thursday about his game because he's a starting edge rusher for Washington State. We're going to talk to him about his game versus Oregon State, and he actually got to go up against Taliese. I do not like Patrick Paul. Like, that's one of the players I just do not like as a prospect. So I'm going to use him as a placeholder because Taliesin is not listed, but he will be eventually. He's a right tackle at Oregon State. Pure monster in the run game, and he's actually really polished as a pass blocker as well. Pick number 22 for Washington. Like, they also need tackle pretty desperately. And looking at guys like Tyler Guyton, I'm very excited about. Kingsley Suamataia kind of struggled at left tackle, but he's proven to be a good right tackle at 15 pounds heavier. So I think to take the questions out of it, I know linebacker could be a concern, could get another weapon for Sam, but that offensive line has been absolute butt cheeks. Tyler Guyton's going to be at 6'7", 320 pounds, a very good addition. Pick number 23 for Seattle, defensive interior, linebacker, quarterback. Those are the concerns. Even though quarterback's not really a huge concern, you still have another year to wait for Shedeur Sanders. Damn, Dallas Turner's still on the board. For those of y'all who think that I'm hating on players, I have 3 of my top 10 players still on the board. Like, I'm not hating on them. There's just guys who fit better given the situation, like Leonard Taylor in this situation or Chris Jenkins. I think Chris is better versus the run. Leonard Taylor's just a higher upside as a pass rusher, so it depends on what you're actually looking for. We'll go Leonard Taylor because I usually go after Chris Jenkins, and Leonard Taylor's an absolute beast, so I'm not going to really complain about that too much. Ravens, I think corner is probably the way I'm going to go. Dwight McLaughlin is the guy who I'm going to start targeting before guys like Denzel Burke, who I believe in. And Dwight McLaughlin, also another one of those guys who is not listed. For those of y'all who don't know, Dwight McLaughlin is at number 41 on my big board. And he's going to be continuing to move up. I just need to see more all-22 before I do that. But he had an interception last week. So we're going to go after him. I'm going to use TJ Tampa, who I really like as a placeholder. But TJ Tampa, based on what I have seen, is not a first round or a second round corner. So hopefully I don't eat my words by wanting to go TJ Tampa later, but I highly doubt it. So this is going to be Dwight McLaughlin, corner out of Arkansas. And I said in off-man coverage, that was the only thing he ever did in the NFL, he'd be a top 10 corner year one. So just take that as you will. Pick number 25. This is going to be Chris Jenkins. I still want defensive interior for this team. Right guard with Christian Haynes would be incredible as well. But Michigan. There you go. It's also just a really good pick. Pick number 26. So KC, man, we're seeing still 2 of my top 10 players right here, and then 3 of them still on the board. I do think defensive interior would have been a good option. We took the top 3. There's a big drop off before the next one. I would probably try to trade back before I legitimately try to go after that. Tight end, this is where Jaleel Billingsley becomes viable. Wide receiver wise, you have so many good options here. And Troy Franklin especially, that's probably going to be the next guy I draft. And I think that's where I usually go with this team. You got Juice Wells here, who I think is going to be that Rashee Rice role. Same thing with Ramo Dunze. I think they both fit into that. Xavier Worthy would be a really good deep threat on this team. There's a lot of fun options that you can go with. And with the edge rushers as well as the quarterbacks on the board, I do think that it's the right thing to do to move out of the spot. And a team like Chicago is going to be dying, and I mean dying, for a top-tier edge rusher. So the Chiefs are going to snag actually an incredible deal. They're going, like, the Bears are probably going to be more focused on building around Caleb. So again, do your math yourself, but they're going to be able to snag an unbelievable deal so that they move up and select Dallas Turner out of Alabama. Marvin Harrison Jr., look at this. Look at this. Barrett number 1, Barrett number 2, Barrett number 5. And hell, if we had another pick, could have went after Barrett number 10 with Christian Haynes for interior offensive line. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit more so that y'all get a little bit better of a view. But at pick number 27, this team has actually brought on quite a few 270-pound edge rushers. Zach Harrison was one of them, but also they brought in veteran help with Bud Dupree. I do think Braylon Trice is up their alley, but the quarterback position is a massive hole. And Bo Nix is an incredible quarterback, should not be on the board at the moment, so he's going to be the guy to go. Pick number 28. Debating also, I'm not going to take Shedeur in this mock draft. For those of y'all who are wondering, why don't I take Shedeur? Just because Daddy Sanders didn't say it. I'm debating taking him off my board entirely, but we'll see what happens. I still think Shadur would have been arguably a more fun choice for me at 27, but I do think Bo Nix is a better player. At 28, I could see Braylon Trice just being too good of value. The corner core needs help. Dwight McLaughlin's a perfect fit here. Unfortunately, I just took him there at 24. You could look at the interior of the offensive line. I still think the right guard spot with Christian Haynes would be a massive upgrade, and you can never get too many upgrades on this team. Wide receiver wise, I know that there's guys like Troy Franklin who could be a good deep threat. You could look for someone who's a little bit more big bodied like Rome Odunze. I don't put that out of the realm of possibility. Now, like edge rusher, damn. I mean, because you could just continue developing the edge room. It's been performing actually really well, so I'm not going to necessarily need to do that. I do think offensive line is, I mean, I'm not reading this and going off of it because I think that's kind of cheap, but I really do think that that right guard spot, I've been trying to fill it for decades now, and I'm going to do it with Christian Haynes, who's a number 10 player on my board. The Steelers could have used, honestly, Christian Haynes. I mean, I love Christian Haynes to death, so I know that I'm in the minority there. Linebacker, going to be one of the primary positions I look at. Other positions I would look at for the Steelers, right tackle, and we do have Kingsley Suamataia that we could put back there, and I'm starting to lean towards that. Our offensive line still needs a ton of help, so they've been actually doing a lot better of a job. Kenny Pickett's just bailing out of clean pockets, but I do want to invest in Kingsley Suamataia and move him back to that. Well, actually, I drafted him, didn't I? Yeah, to the Bills. Taliese Fuaga. Kingsley Suamataia is going to be the selection there. The Steelers I'm just going to continue investing in the offensive line until it's fixed. I grew up a Steelers fan and Bears fan. I just don't ask about it. I had Walter Payton, Gale Sayers, Brian Urlacher on my wall, but also Rocky Bleier and, just Jack Campbell as well. Or it's not Jack Campbell. Why am I tripping balls? Y'all know who I'm talking about. But Jack Ham, there we go, on my wall. So it just is what it is. But, growing up as a Steelers fan, I got to see plenty, and I mean plenty of top-tier offensive linemen come through our building, and it's a straight-up shell of what we used to be. It's a shame, but we're bringing more Samoans to our offensive line with Kingsley Suamataia, and I am all for it. Pick number 30, another team that could have drafted Kingsley and developed him to be the successor to Lane Johnson. The Eagles, wide receiver is certainly on my board, but again, I've been talking about this quite a bit. The edge rushing room, you are going to be losing BG as well as Derek Barnett. I love Leatu Latu. I think he's a great potential selection here. I usually go that way. But I'm just going to show love to my board and go Braylon Trice, who actually probably will be sliding a little bit, but at 270, 6'4", just has great athletic ability, high IQ. I think that this guy is certainly the real deal. I just think he needs to get his head and ass wired back together. Pick number 31. So I do like continuing to develop the offensive line for this team. I think Troy Fautanu as a guard/tackle hybrid could be an excellent choice. I love Troy Fautanu. Where's he on my board? I have him, right there at 37. So easily within striking range. I think linebacker as well wouldn't be an awful choice. Like, I know I've been going corner, and to be fair, I've been discounting Cam Smith quite a bit by doing that, but I'm going to ditch that for the time being. Tight end, though, Jatavian Sanders could be a good addition on this team. Doesn't seem like they need to invest in that position, though. So I am actually going to be going after Troy Fautanu because I think he can play interior offensive line, but he also is a pure left tackle, so it's actually very good in case of injury. Pick number 32 for the Niners, and ending off today's frenzy, I am looking actually at probably those four positions, and I'm fully leaning towards Kalen Bullock because we're going to stay local to the West Coast with a ball hawking safety to replace Gibson. That is going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. See you on the far side.